I was at Toronto Film Festival. Suspicious. One of the films I saw was the new Thomas Vinterberg film, Another Round, starring Mads Mikkelsen. The two had previously worked together in the 2012 film The Hunt, which is my second favorite movie of that year. Now, this film has a very different tone and very different goals. The Hunt is a very stressful and depressing film, and although there's no shortage of emotional moments in this film, it is also very much a comedy. Essentially, this film is about a group of high school teachers that decide to start living their lives with a constant blood alcohol level of 0.05. It's a goofy concept, but the way it's handled is still relatively believable, and watching the characters try to justify their actions to themselves throughout the film is pretty amusing. As you might have guessed, this film makes statements on drinking culture in general, and it's mostly handled well, although at some points this film does feel a little obvious in what it's trying to say. At some points it honestly feels like kind of a PSA. At the very least, it is still a great commentary on the psychology of addiction and self-deception, and I guess one of the more interpretable aspects of this film is whether or not any given scene is actually funny or sad. On a technical level, this film is pretty great. It is well shot and feels very much alive. There's some really beautiful scenes with good music. The characters were well written and easy to empathize with. All of the performances in this film were really great, and especially by Mads. Their ability to behave like they're actually intoxicated is pretty impressive. The only technical issue I would have with this film would have to do with the background audio in at least one scene. The bigger issue I had with this film is that parts near the ending felt really rushed and thrown together. The way it presents certain events near the end of the film starts to feel a little unintentionally silly. There are also conclusions in this film that I really wish were more fleshed out, and despite this film having a pretty clear message, it starts to get a bit muddied by the end of it. Despite these issues, this film is still very much elevated by the great performances and characters. It was a very engaging film that flowed really well. It was funny, it was sad, and it was surprisingly heartfelt. I really enjoyed this film, so check this one out whenever you can, and also check out The Hunt from 2012. And I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. It's closer to an 8 than a 6. Another film I saw was Wolfwalkers, the latest film from the Irish animation studio that made The Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea, and The Breadwinner. Now, I've enjoyed most of Cartoon Saloon's previous films, and I've always had a good amount of respect for them. It's refreshing to see a studio continue to pursue 2D-style animation, and the more support and success that these films get, the higher chance that we'll see other animation studios return to making traditionally animated 2D films in the future. It's an art form that I'd like to keep alive, so I'm glad that they're getting some mainstream attention. Perhaps one day the Academy Awards will actually give them Best Animated Feature instead of whatever random Disney movie happened to be released that year. Anyway, despite me enjoying and appreciating their previous films, I never really had a strong connection with them, and I'm happy to say that that's the biggest improvement for my experience watching this film. This film is definitely a kids movie despite some moments of violence that might seem a little bit too much for younger audiences, and the general blueprint of the story has been done many times in many different forms, but there's enough of a spin on it that it still manages to feel somewhat original. Most of the aspects of this film that felt a little too familiar for me were found within the first act, but once the film gets past the setup, it is very creative and enjoyable. There's really great music and art design, there are some really cool transitions and perspective shots, there are interesting and purposeful framing choices, there's also instances of thematic aspect ratio changes which I definitely wasn't expecting. This is an animated film that really does not waste the medium. Now, it's pretty rare for me to say this about a kids movie, but I was actually engaged in the story. Like, sure, it is not without having any kids movie story cliches, but it's a movie that feels like it has a genuine conflict with genuine consequences. There's some great action with really exhilarating drama. This is a film that has a thorough understanding of creating a cinematic experience. All of the elements of filmmaking greatly complement each other and work very well. There's also some really good voice acting in the film. Now, as I was watching it, I was kind of expecting it to feel sloppy and fall apart in the third act, but this is a movie that honestly just gets better and better as it goes. Thinking about this film now has me eager to see it again, and it's very possible that my rating will go up over time. This is one of my favorite animated movies in quite a while, so I encourage you to check it out whenever you can. And I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10.